Hey, well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Collision. Daniel here, and 13 Lives from director Ron Howard, retelling the kind of miraculous Thailand cave rescue story from 2018. Just dropped on Amazon Prime Video. I've seen it, so let's talk about it. So back in 2018, I think I was like millions of other people around the world that was just captivated by this sort of larger-than-life story. Happened in Thailand. If you weren't familiar with sort of what happened, a soccer team, 12 boys and their coach got stranded in a cave that flooded, and sort of over the next couple weeks, sort of the heroic efforts that went on and kind of people coming together to try and rescue people. It captivated people in a lot of ways, I think, because it unfolded like a Hollywood movie. It was almost like, had all the elements of this, a great narrative, although it was true. So it was inevitable that at some point it was going to become an actual Hollywood movie. Thankfully, Ron Howard, kind of esteemed director, has been doing this for a long time. He proves to kind of have the perfect storytelling sensibilities to handle a story like this. 13 Lives, this movie's been getting a lot of good buzz since it released, and the buzz is well warranted. This movie is superb. I loved this movie. I loved really almost everything about this movie. It's kind of an excellently crafted movie that I think is like just as intense as it is inspiring. So why don't we get into this? There's a lot to appreciate with this movie. And kind of based on the real life events. Maybe to start, this film has a strong cast. It's really bolstered by there's a lot of great kind of character actors, kind of highlighted by Viggo Mortensen, Aragorn himself, Colin Farrell, Joel Edgerton, Tom Bateman, kind of highlighting the cast as like the main kind of divers that come in as part of this rescue effort, and they're all great. They all shine. In a lot of ways, none of them necessarily like, stand out, but I mean that in I think a good way. They are. These are sort of more character actors. It's not. You feel like these are real characters. They're nuanced. They're believable. It's not like, hey, there's Tom Cruise diving and he's playing this character. You sort of forget that these are recognizable actors. So all those actors do well, but really this isn't a story that is about individuals. All these characters, they get like enough backstory-ish and details and kind of, some implied details about their lives, kind of just enough to ground them as like these are real people and they have lived histories, and their characters really doesn't explore their backstories in any depth at all. And it seems like Ron Howard in this, he's kind of less interested in sort of, telling and developing sort of this heroic character and focusing on these like specific individual divers, and he's kind of more interested in telling like a story of community, whether that's sort of local or just sort of global, and kind of from start to finish the focus on this in this movie is almost primarily on just the rescue effort. It's not necessarily about one character or this character, but it's just sort of about all these people that come together kind of for the shared kind of goal to rescue these 12 young boys and their soccer coach. And that rescue operation, it is a captivating story, and part of that is kind of amplified just by the cinematography of this. The way that this thing is filmed is just super immersive. Again, a lot of it is filmed like like underwater. They're diving through the kind of the caves and trying to locate these boys. They don't even know if they're alive. And just, the way that the camera kind of moves, you definitely feel just sort of the claustrophobia and sort of like at times it's sort of chaotic and you're not exactly sure what is happening on camera as they're trying to get through the caves, but not in like oh, I wish this was clear, what is going on, but more that you kind of feel is some of that tension of just sort of, hey, these guys are going in almost blind, the caves are surrounding them. And kind of despite a pretty lengthy runtime, this thing is about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So it's a long movie, and I am notorious for being, on a crusade against long runtimes. But at least for me with this movie, it was warranted. It never felt like it was dragging, or you never really felt the length of it. And you kind of keeps sort of this almost constant tension from start to finish. It doesn't take long for the boys to get trapped, and then kind of throughout the runtime, there's sort of this kind of near constant tension. And even when it does, kind of in the middle, it does the pace slows down as the rescuers are trying to kind of come up with what their plan is, and kind of they're preparing for it and trying to figure out what to do. Even then, when it's sort of somewhat of a slower kind of pacing, you always feel just sort of the urgency of the situation. You kind of know that there's a ticking clock, that the oxygen's going down, and they don't know if these boys are alive, and they don't have food, and so you definitely feel it. And then like when the actual rescue operation comes, it's about the last hour of this movie is this sort of this kind of rescue mission, and it is like, and I was sitting there holding my breath as I was watching it. It is super intense. It's super captivating. So even though it is a long movie, definitely by no means like a boring or slow movie. One of the other things I enjoyed a lot about this movie is, though it is very obviously Ron Howard's a very capable director, and this thing is shot. There's some beautiful shots, and this sort of like the scenery in Thailand, and then like in the caves, and this sort of constructed. At the same time, it sort of lacks some of the expected like Hollywoodization that you would maybe expect from that, and I mean that in a very positive sense. That I think Howard, he demonstrates kind of restraint throughout this. That he doesn't force or kind of manufacture drama or tension that he doesn't need to. He sort of allows the actual real life situation and the kind of the intensity of that kind of to stand on its own. He doesn't sort of try and infuse it with sort of some conflict here, or just sort of real kind of forced tension in the dive. He just sort of lets the situation speak. And at least for me, it just made the film feel less like you're just sort of watching a Hollywood film, and you almost forget that that this isn't real life. It's so close to sort of the real event. So at least for me, I definitely appreciate that in this film. As far as kind of content to consider with this thing, profanity, there is profanity. There's two kind of F-bombs at various points, and then kind of a collection of maybe more minor profanity. At least the ones that I caught, there's 4 S words, and one character says hell, and then there's 2 uses of kind of the Lord's name in vain. Again, it didn't feel like it was just sort of some bombardment of profanity, and given the situation, it didn't feel like gratuitous, but there is that. And there's no violence. There is, some characters kind of get like bloodied by the rescue operation, but again, it's not like violence in kind of that sense. Sexuality, there's no sexuality. Maybe the only other kind of content thing that maybe Christians should be aware with this film is that there is, again, this film is set kind of in Thailand, and there is kind of frequent depictions of like religious elements, obviously not Christian, kind of Buddhist, and then I think maybe some other kind of Eastern stuff, or even like a little kind of superstitious kind of local stuff that happens. And it's kind of some examples, like characters are shown multiple times praying or bowing, chanting, kind of burning incense. The coach and the boys kind of leads them through. They talk about kind of meditating, and he kind of leads them through some meditation rituals. And then even like the mountain that this cave is in there's sort of like a shrine there to Princess Nang Nun, which is, I guess, the sleeping princess, and kind of the mountain in sort of resembles her, like physically the makeup of it, so it's sort of said to be like her mountain. And so at various times characters talk about sort of the superstition that she's angry, or that kind of her tears are what kind of caused the rain, and to fill, and they kind of say they don't really know why. This is sort of what locals say. And then there's another scene where a character is kind of praying on behalf of for safety, and kind of prays to the spirit of the forest, and kind of prays and kind of apologizes for anything that the boys and the coach have done wrong to warrant such anger. So there is that. It is kind of authentic to where the setting of this movie. As a Christian, none of that bothered me. Maybe other Christians will feel differently. I thought it was telling a true story, and I do think that there's interesting stuff in there. There is sort of this underpinning of sort of this mindset, I guess, the religious mindset that that if, because of this hard situation, the gods must be angry and wrathful. And so I do think as Christians, there's stuff to kind of contrast with what kind of the Bible says. But again, be aware that there is sort of some religious stuff kind of all throughout this film. As far as themes, kind of things going on beneath the surface of this, I think the title of this movie is very appropriately named, 13 Lives. This is a movie that's really just about kind of, how much is a life worth? Like, how much will we go, kind of what lengths do we go to protect and to save? to save lives. And well, the film itself doesn't describe like Christian or biblical meanings to or motivations to the rescue mission. Kind of the verse that came to mind as I was watching this is 2 Corinthians 5:14, where it just says, "For the love of Christ compels us." And kind of that's sort of the message, although it's not maybe the love of Christ that's compelling these characters. That's sort of the mindset, I guess, that comes through in this film. That kind of you have characters, a bunch of volunteers that are just making sacrifices, kind of pitching in, doing whatever they can, just for the chance, even the non-guaranteed chance to save some of these boys. You have sort of farmer characters that allow their crops, their fields to be flooded and destroyed in order to divert some of the water off the cave. And it kind of an end title at the end of this film kind of says about, I think, 5,000 people from 17 different countries were involved in some point in kind of the real life and the movie version of the rescue effort. And kind of it's summarized at the very end. The governor who's sort of trying to oversee all this, the rescue effort, is giving a thank you speech and for the volunteers and their sacrifices. And he says, "You ask for nothing in return, but I know you all did this for one reason, the love for the boys." And again, I think it's an inspiring message. I think there's one that we can apply as Christians, just sort of as, does love compel us to kind of do whatever it takes for others? And maybe the other kind of theme that I saw going throughout this, another wholesome, I think, inspirational theme is this sort of unity and shared humanity. Again, this is sort of like an international rescue effort. So you have people from different countries and walks of life and different religions and all that kind of stuff are all kind of thrown together. And kind of initially there is sort of some friction, some hostility. Again, I don't think director Ron Howard overly dramatizes it, thankfully, but you do get some of that. You have a kind of the Navy SEALs from the locals that have been trained in like open water diving, and they don't trust the sort of these older British divers that come in. But even if they're more capable or experienced in like cave diving, and so you have some of that kind of competition or just back and forth. But really, kind of as the rescue drags on, like the urgency of that comes. You kind of see these characters just set aside some of these differences and kind of unite under this kind of a shared goal to save these children. Again, a verse that I thought of for this, Philippians 1:27. The Apostle Paul says, "Whatever happens, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, that whether I come to you, see you, or only hear about you in my absence, I will know that you stand firm in one spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel." I think that's sort of what this film is establishing. This sort of this, hey, we're all different, but kind of when there's a kind of a worthy goal that kind of is above that, we can kind of strive together and set aside those differences. So I do think kind of this movie, although Christ and Jesus, and it's not in a Christian sense in the film, there's definitely some themes for Christians to kind of be inspired and motivated by. So, as you can probably tell, I really enjoyed this movie. It wasn't one that I was necessarily kind of anticipating or looking forward to, but it was getting some good buzz, and I'm glad I checked it out. This is streaming on Amazon Prime Video, so it's not released theatrically. But again, if this is a movie, if you have Prime Video, it's a movie I definitely recommend. I think kind of in a year where there's been just a bunch of kind of large spectacle-driven kind of hollow blockbusters, that this is kind of a story that I think needs to be told, and probably one of my favorite films of the year. So again, I definitely recommend checking this thing out. And if you do, hey, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you were inspired by it, if you noticed anything different in this movie. I do think it is a movie that can inspire and kind of encourage us today. But hey, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't done so, I encourage you guys, subscribe to our channel, like this video, do all that stuff. Just join with what we're doing here at The Collision. Got a lot of stuff coming up. We'd love to have you be a part of that. But thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe and continue to collide with your world for Christ.